I'm sure a lot of you have heard the classic line, high school is only 4 years of your life. My retort to that line is, 4 years for an 18-year-old is over a fifth of their life. But it's not just about the amount of time, it's about what happens during those 4 years. For a lot of people, myself included, high school was a time of extreme growth and change, whether that be for better or for worse. It's one of the most influential time periods in shaping one's personality. It's not just 4 years of your life. It's the last 4 years of schooling for some people, and for others it's the last 4 years of secondary schooling. Everyone will spend more years of their life out of school than in, but regardless of that factor, your experiences during school are exclusive to that time period. To that extent, those memories are some of the most influential a person can have. The day before spring break, tension filled the air at my school. The question in the back of everyone's minds was, when will we be back in school? Little did everyone know that that day was our last day of school. At first, when I heard the news that my school had extended its spring break for an entire week, and then eventually that my school was going online for the rest of the year, I was ecstatic. I finally had the time to do everything I wanted to do. Finish Persona 5, work on writing my light novel, start my list of planned manga and anime, and learn how to play fingerstyle guitar. However, I realized quickly that, despite having a lot of free time on my hands, I just didn't feel like being productive. All of my classes added up to about an hour of work each day, so I stopped caring about them entirely. It was mostly busy work with the exception of a few things anyway. I had always thought that I was a productive person of my own volition. It turned out that I was actually only productive because of the structure that being in school provided me. But the structure wasn't the only thing I missed from high school. I was a very involved student in my high school. After junior high, I moved from suburban Indiana to rural Indiana, and I moved from a school where my graduating class was several thousand to a school where my graduating class was less than 50. It was a small town school, and I still remember the first time I was asked to join an extracurricular. We had just finished running the pacer test in PE, and a girl told me that I should join the cross-country team. I had never experienced extracurriculars before, so I was unsure of what to do. If I hadn't been to a small town, there's absolutely no chance that I would have been asked to join a sports team, let alone any other club. I attended one practice, and on a whim decided that I would do it. Throughout high school, I had so many other experiences that were a result of me joining the cross-country team, and discovering what being on a team or in a club was really like. My teammates became something like family to me. That's saying a lot, considering this was during a time in my life where I found it extremely difficult to become attached to people. I branched out into so many other clubs, and I'm glad I did. I never would have been able to connect with people at the school without finding my place in these clubs first. When I said I was involved, I meant I was involved. Listing all of the clubs I was a part of, I was in cross-country, track, esports, drama club, Business Professionals of America, National Honor Society, Travel Club, and Writing Club. I have fond memories of all of these clubs. In cross-country, I found my place in a group of people who were like family to me. In track, I made great friends that I still am fairly close with today. In esports, I learned how to lead a team and how to bond with people over a video game. Our Smite team made it all the way to the finals in the HSCL and actually won the tournament. It made me realize how great it is to accomplish something with someone rather than alone. In drama club, I made some great friends, overcame my mild stage fright, and learned how to portray an entire character's story in just a few words or actions. In BPA, I made it all the way to the state conference, and although it was just professional test taking, it was some of the most fun I'd had with that group of people. In travel club, just like the light music club did, I got to visit London. I was able to see another part of the world and a whole new culture. All of these experiences made me who I am. I've attached myself to those memories, and I'll never let them go. However, I didn't realize how important those memories were until it was all over. Within the blink of an eye, I was on summer break, counting down the weeks before I started college. There was no grand transition or goodbye to the small world that had shaped who I was. With the quarantine, I missed out on a proper closing to my high school years. My final drama club play, my final esports match, my final track meet, I missed all of them. The transition out of high school was so awkward and empty that I didn't fully grasp the fact that my high school years were over. That was until I watched K-On! I shared my high school experience with the Light Music Club. Just like the members of the Light Music Club in each of my clubs, I laughed, cried, practiced, and achieved great things with groups of wonderful people. However, my Light Music Club experience was ripped straight from my hands, just like it was from every senior of 2020. After watching episode 20 of season 2, it really hit me. I had graduated. My high school years were over. After watching that episode, I looked back at old pictures of my high school years while listening to the soundtrack of K-On! I cried relentlessly as I did so, reminiscing on all of my experiences and what I was going to miss. Now, whenever I hear the music from K-On!, I usually find myself on the verge of tears. Just because our Light Music Club experience was stolen from us at the very end does not mean it was entirely lost. We didn't have a grand closure to our high school careers. In fact, we hardly had any closure at all. Unfortunately, that caused me to overlook how much high school meant to me. I never had a chance to look back and reflect on those years because of it being cut off so abruptly, but now I can look back proudly at how far I've come. All of these people, clubs, experiences, they all changed me. I wouldn't be the same without them. So yeah, it sucks that we didn't get the authentic Light Music Club experience we were all hoping for at the end of our high school careers, but we shouldn't brush off the wonderful experiences we did have. We missed out on a lot, but we experienced a lot more than we missed out on. K-On! Was the show that taught me that. Watching K-On! Made me grateful for all the memories I had, and it made me want to strive to make more lasting memories with new opportunities on the horizon. Seniors of 2020, you have parted ways with high school or college now. I recommend you take a moment and look back. Look back on everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Not just so you can cherish those memories, but so you can give a proper goodbye. Now to my high school. This is goodbye. I will never lose those wonderful memories you've given me, and I will never lose the spark for a change you inspired in me. To all the people that were like a family to me in my clubs and classes, thanks. Thanks for everything. It's time for me to move on. Graduating from high school and moving on to college was the biggest transition I have ever experienced in my life. A lot of new doors opened for me, but a lot of other doors closed as well. Moving on with my life after high school was easier for me because of COVID. I had already been trapped in the house for so long, so I was ready to move out into a new environment. There were some other factors that may have made the adjustment significantly easier for me than others, but just because it was easier does not mean it wasn't an adjustment. I tend to be a more flexible person, living life as it comes to me. However, college throws life into your face so hard that it's difficult for even a flexible person such as myself to cope. There are a lot of new changes that college brings to the table, including the diversity of culture, new academic pacing, and a new lifestyle. There's one change that I feel is the most prevalent in people as they get settled in their new college life, and that one change is becoming independent. Parents and students alike struggle with this. How do you cope with independence? How do you adult? Adulting is a term synonymous with the phrase taking responsibility. I was already a, relatively speaking, fairly independent person before moving on to college, but once I actually moved into my dorm and began my college life about a month ago, I quickly realized that adulting had a whole new meaning. I had my own money that I had a budget to accommodate for my meal plan only covering 2/3 of my meals each week. I had my own living space that I had to keep relatively clean so as to not piss off my roommate. I had my own time to spend without anyone specifically dictating how I spent it, and I had to actually go out of my way to interact and meet new people. All of this responsibility suddenly fell on top of me. My main mode of transportation was a bike, but my whole schedule was thrown off when the rear tube in my bike went flat. I had to search around for the right size tube, walk to a bike shop, and replace it. Let's just say I learned more about bikes on that day than I had any other day. Even so, with all of this new responsibility, there were also a lot of new freedoms. I loved, and still do love, every single minute of it. I had the time to start up YouTube again. I felt productive in my life for once. I could go anywhere I wanted to do anything at any time of the day, and I could stay up as late as I wanted with my friends. I've come to embrace my independence, and I've learned to somewhat be an adult. If it wasn't for the 27-year-old NEET named Arta Kaizaki, I wouldn't have been able to adapt so quickly. I discovered ReLIFE within my first week of the summer semester. It was an extremely lucky find. I found a new cast of characters for me to emotionally invest myself in, with a captivating plot and a fantastic soundtrack to accompany it. But what really made ReLIFE stick out to me was how well Arta's situation pertained to me. Before starting college, I had realized that education was my life. In 4 years, I was going to be out of college, but then what? The time after college seemed so mysterious to me. There were so many possibilities of what kind of a life I could lead. I also realized that I would start working and wouldn't stop working until I retired. Therefore, my thought process was that my first job should be one that I enjoyed a lot, otherwise I'd be stuck living a life revolved around shallow or static career aspirations. Arta quit his job due to the bureaucratic hierarchy and corrupt leadership behind the company. Just like with me, he was thrown into complete independence suddenly, though his was due to his mother cutting off his funding despite him being unemployed. He struggled to find a new job because he quit his first job after only 3 months, so fears of the rest of his life becoming a mess began to culminate within him. Those fears were culminated in me as well, although to a lesser degree, as I was worrying more about 4 years into the future, whereas Arata was worrying about his immediate future. Ryo gives Arata a chance at redemption in his life, the ReLIFE experiment. He offers Arata a pill that would make him appear as a high schooler so he can attend high school for 1 year with all of his living expenses paid for and a possible job opportunity lined up at the end. The experiment is meant to rehabilitate shut-ins and needs by giving them a reason to interact with others and a structure meant to emphasize the new responsibilities being an adult requires. Arta starts out with a plan to stay on the sidelines and not bother with any of the students, just so he can take advantage of the coverage of his living expenses and the job opportunity. Eventually, though, he finds himself surrounded by people that he is all influenced, and still wants to influence for the better, so that they don't make the same mistakes he has. Arta is also constantly under the impression that everyone at his previous job is just as corrupt as the leaders, and that his legacy would be remembered as idiotic rather than courageous. In episode 11, however, this impression of his is completely flipped on its head when 2 of the new employees comment on how much Arta's actions influenced them. It makes Arta look on his past with a more positive light, which also enables him to move on and look into the future with hope. Through ReLIFE, the mysteries of college and beyond became significantly less mysterious. Looking back on my life and all of my experiences, there may be some lessons I've learned that I can at least loosely apply to any situation that may hit me in the future. I learned to look at my mysterious future with hope rather than worry. The main lesson ReLIFE taught me was that adulting isn't just about shouldering the burden of your responsibility. It's not just about accepting that you are now independent and dealing with it. There's far more to it than that. True adulting is when you take care of your responsibilities using your past experiences, embrace your new responsibilities as new values in life, and accept the new freedoms granted with those responsibilities as a positive influence. Adulting this way allows you to lose some of the stress and all of the unknowns of the future in college and afterward. Graduating from high school made me lose a lot of structure in my life, but now instead of being stuck on the thoughts of, I wish I was in high school, thanks to ReLIFE's biggest lesson, I can move on with my life and the new opportunities at the doorstep. Even though I've overcome a lot of my crippling cynicism, I am actually still a fairly cynical and practical person. Superstition does not appeal to me, therefore it's only natural that I don't believe in ghosts. I haven't believed in anything supernatural for quite some time, but that doesn't mean I'm disinterested in looking at things that could be explained by supernatural occurrences, though the likelihood of that being the case, from my perspective, is 0. Even if I know ghosts aren't real, I still enjoy looking at ghost pictures, listening to ghost stories, and imagining what it would be like if maybe ghosts did exist. I love horror, and I love to ponder the possibility of supernatural things, despite my cynicism consistently reassuring myself that supernatural occurrences are unrealistic. I'm sure many of you watching this share my disbelief in ghosts, too. That being said, I have encountered a ghost in my life. It was one that I didn't even realize was there until after I finished high school. Even if you don't believe in ghosts, and even if you think you've never encountered a ghost, there is always one that we've all encountered and will encounter throughout our lives. It's a ghost that lingers around us all. You can find it in a specific place. You know the place. It's the one that reminds you of all the fun times you had with your childhood friends. You can find it in a song. You know the song. That song that reminds you of what you call the good old days of music. You could find it in a smell. You know the smell. The smell of that air freshener that reminds you of the one your relatives used while you visited them for the holidays. You could find it in a game. You know the game that reminds you of how you used to play it for hours on end with your friends. You can find this ghost anywhere. It naturally finds its way into the things you hold dearest. It's the ghost of nostalgia. the ghost of your sentimental memories. To be frank, I'm only 18 years old. I have a long life ahead of me. Well, that's the hope anyway. However, just because I've only lived on this planet for 18 years doesn't mean that I'm immune to the pleasant, melancholic, and peaceful sensation that is nostalgia. I look back on my past a lot, but there's a difference between simply recalling a memory and nostalgia. Nostalgia is usually the recollection of a relatively distant memory that is triggered through sight, sound, taste, smell, or touch. When I experience nostalgia, it is often a reflexive reaction, so I don't necessarily control when it happens. As I've written essays about my time in high school, I've experienced many nostalgia trips about not just my earlier times in high school, but also my time in junior high and before. Those memories, relative to my current age, are distant. Those memories have passed, and it is sad that they have, but I still love encountering nostalgia's ghost. I didn't realize that nostalgia was attached to so many things in my life. Before I finished high school, I wasn't really interested in placing sentimental value on things. Now that I've experienced nostalgia firsthand and realized that it was nostalgia, it's something I don't ever want to lose the capability to feel. No anime captures the true impact of nostalgia's ghost quite like Anohana does. Menma represents a lot of things. Not only does she represent the ghost of herself, but she also represents the character's stress, anxiety, sadness, love, and their lost childhood. Menma's ghost is a constant reminder to all of the characters that, as they've grown, they've quickly abandoned something that should be very important to them. She is the ghost of the character's lost innocence and naivety, their nostalgia. To the Super Peace Busters, Menma is a reminder not to give up on all of their nostalgia. She's a reminder that their innocence, their childhood, is something to be valued, not abandoned. Whether they admitted it or not, the Super Peace Busters were aware of the childhood values they abandoned, and they desired to regain them. With the exception of when the characters went to Menma's house, they referred to her by her childhood nickname, Menma. They outwardly refused to refer to each other by their childhood nicknames, but throughout almost all of the series, all of the Super Peace Busters referred to Mako as Menma. It was a cry for help. They were desperately reaching out for their lost childhood that they thought they could never get back. They desired the nostalgia they had abandoned, but they were still uncertain of what regaining those childhood values would entail. Until Menma moved on to heaven, the Super Peace Busters were not at peace with her death. They abandoned their childhood values because reminiscing on their past was painful. Nostalgia to them could only be considered grieving, not a recollection of memories. Once they accepted that Menma was gone, and that their past was to be cherished, not pushed away, they also began to regain their childhood values. They regained their nostalgia. That was, except for Jinta. His situation was the opposite of the others. Jinta could see Menma, and at first it seemed like he didn't value his past for the same reasons as the other Super Peace Busters. However, after Jinta spent some time with Menma's ghost, he gradually became attached to his past. He remembered his love for Menma, and for that and other reasons, he didn't want to let go of her. He was too attached to nostalgia's ghost. Jinta spent so much time remembering the past that he had no time left to actually live in the present. Along with Menma, the others were eventually able to show Jinta just how much the present actually meant to him. His past and his childhood were valuable, but his current life was just as valuable. None of the Super Peace Busters could truly live without valuing both. Nostalgia is an important part of my life, and I will always value it, but I will not get stuck remembering the good old days to the point that the present becomes meaningless. I have to balance my value of both. No matter what pain lies in your past, there is always something of value that you can cherish in it. And just as well, no matter what pain lies in your present, there is always something of value that you can cherish in it. Nostalgia has been an important part of my life, and Anohana was the anime that showed what its true value was to me. It's ironic for me to say that a ghost of all things taught me how to live, but just like Menma's ghost taught the Super Peace Busters what it truly means to be alive, Nostalgia's ghost taught me the same. Nostalgia's ghost taught me that being alive isn't just about living in the present. It's a balance of reminiscing on the past, living in the present, and looking hopefully to the future. I will never let go of my encounters with Nostalgia's ghost, but I'll still continue to look forward and live in the present so that I, too, can become a Super Peace Buster and learn what it truly means to be alive.